All right. Hi, everybody. It's our CFB Talk 135. It is Tuesday night. This is our opportunity to hear from you, and that's something we'd like to do. So, if you'd like to talk about what's going on in college football as we're in the off season, just go ahead and hit request. It's in the bottom left of the Twitter app, and we'll get you up here to talk about what's going on. Just got up a quick tweet just to let people know how to do that in case they need a refresh. But I'd love to talk to you about whatever's going on. I mean, there's a lot going on. We're getting closer to the NFL draft, although we're not a real NFL draft site. Certainly, that's something we're looking forward to covering. We're actually going to be sending a reporter to Kansas City, who's actually local, to be fair. And we're going to be having someone on the ground, so look out for some tweets about that next week. Obviously, a lot of things are going on. There are a couple of big transfer portal moves. There's a lot of other things going on. I wanted to, again, if you'd like to join, just hit request. My name is Bob Akhieri here at RCFB. One of the news items that it's starting with just kind of a cute one, and maybe it gets missed. And I think if this moves forward as they have planned, a lot more people are going to hear about it and kind of get into it. There's a campaign over at Louisiana Lafayette, the Raging Cajuns, because surprisingly, they don't really have a mascot, apparently. I always assumed they had sort of like a chili pepper on the sideline or something, but apparently they don't. So there is this groundswell to name a new mascot, and it is this. I got to find the tweet for you, but it is a albino white gator, so with red eyes, and he's got like a classic sort of sweater on, and he's got like the sailor cap, and the best part is his name. It's Albino Al Boudreaux, completely decked out in the faux Cajun. Albino is, instead of an O, it's EAUX, and Boudreaux is Boudreaux. So I mean, it's already in the realm. So really leaning into that Cajun fandom. So I really hope they get that going. It sounds like it's got a lot of momentum. Louisiana Lafayette does not have a mascot, so if we get Albino Al Boudreaux, the albino alligator for them, I mean that's going to be delightful. So that's one of those lighter stories. I just had to toss it out there because as I was catching up with the week, that one absolutely jumped out to me. Again, if there's anything in college football you'd like to talk about, hit request, and we can have a discussion about it tonight. So, another interesting story that I saw, at least coming out of one of the tweets, it's actually from one of the Michigan regions. And he points out something that I think a lot of fans, especially those who are passionate fans of sports, like to point to, and what the benefits are of college success, either in football or in basketball. So Regent Jordan Acker tweeted that, like it or not, academics can be boosted by good D1 sports. At the Association of Governing Boards conference, one speaker complained that Nick Saban is the most famous person in academia. But you know who isn't complaining about Nick Saban being famous? The deans at Alabama. And I think a lot of folks have written about that. Alabama is doing so much better, at least in terms of applications, ever since they brought Nick Saban. I believe their president even said he was the best thing that they ever did in terms of making a hire. I think of other classic examples of that. I mean, some of you may remember when George Mason, who obviously doesn't play football, but when they made the Final Four back in 2006, their admissions went up by 350% immediately after they did that. So sports has a habit of actually kind of raising all ships when it comes to university. In that conversation about the Michigan benefit, there was a Cincinnati fan, Slap the Base God. He said, it's with Cincinnati, their applications also went through the roof after their seasons. And he, like some folks who've gone to some of these schools, says, I'm not even sure if I could even get into Cincy now because their average ACT score went up from 22 to 27. And again, you see that from other fan bases as well. TCU's admissions, Riff, who has co-hosted this show many a time, but has had to take a bit of a family break. He's pointed out TCU's admissions skyrocketed after that famous Rose Bowl win against Wisconsin, and that was before they even joined the Big 12 when they were still kind of a rising Mountain West team. So you see a lot of this. I see we have someone who wants to join us. I'm going to go ahead and let up John Henry Woods. So, John, when you get up here, just go ahead and holler. Oh, looks like we
Hey,
already
how's
got
it
you up.
going, y'all?
How are
I just
you?
doing well, doing well. I just want you to tell me how much you think Alabama's going to beat Texas by in week 2.
It's going to be interesting to see this because we've got two, fresh-faced quarterbacks on both sides. Because obviously Sark named Quinn Evers the starter this week, and we're going to see how Alabama does now that Bryce Young is going to go into the draft. So that's always a bit of a quirk here. I mean, I want to say it's hard not to lean towards Alabama in any kind of matchup like this because it's a machine. Nick
That
Saban.
defense is looking good this year. We're going to get one of them defenses we had back in the day, I'm thinking.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think it's just going to be reloading for Alabama because he's so good at recruiting that he can just plug and play. You're losing obviously some just, complete studs with Will Anderson and many of and some others there, like Brian Branch and all of them. But at the same time, it's Alabama, it's Nick Saban. So when it comes to reloading, I would give Saban a bigger push. I mean, and even Sark. I mean, this week Sark said that I mean, obviously there's a lot of appreciation between at least Sark towards Nick Saban because he saved his coaching career as Sark even said this past week. But I think on the field I'm going to lean towards Alabama just because it going into that, it's hard not to bet against Nick Saban in reloading a team. I mean, I think personally as a USC fan, I learned my lesson when they played in a week one game and Alabama just completely sobered and humbled those Trojans.
I remember
Yeah,
it.
oh yeah, I do
I remember.
too.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thanks so much for your time. Roll
Yeah, good
Tide.
luck. Thanks for joining us. And again, if any of you'd like to join in and just give your thoughts about anything in college football, I'd love to hear from you. This is Tuesday night. It's the off season. We do about 30 minutes just talking college football and taking a look at what's going on here. So yeah, as I was saying, just kind of going back to the previous topic, we're just talking about how schools like Alabama have boosted up so much because of on the field success, and TCU learned from that Rose Bowl success back when they were a Mountain West team and has been absolutely leaning in to advertising the sports aspect and kind of getting that name out because it helps with name recognition. I mean, I believe Tennessee is always an in-demand university. It's the flagship public university in the state of Tennessee, but their applications are already up 40% from last year. So again, you see a lot of that kind of happening after a team does well on the field. So it's interesting to see some of these numbers out there as programs grow and get more success. So yeah, if you'd like to join us, just go ahead and hit request. Another interesting topic that popped up in the last week was the NCAA's new rules on official visits. So that's again recruiting. Starting July 1st, there will be no limits on the amount of official visits a recruit can take. Now, there are a few nuances to that. Prospects will still be limited to one official visit per school, unless there's a head coaching change, in which case they can go back again. But it means that potential players can visit more schools, and it kind of again it opens up a little bit more along this theme we've seen of rights for players, starting with the transfer portal, followed with NIL, and opportunities for players to kind of get more out of their career, especially in a sport where your career can get cut short in a practice, on the field. It's contact sport. Hey, Thack, you came up here. I'd love to hear from you, man.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I hope everybody's having a wonderful Tuesday night. Bob, I just wondered if you had gotten a chance to watch some spring game college football, and wondered what thoughts you might have taken away from some of those games.
I have not had a chance to watch many of the spring games. I will completely and freely admit that. I've been trying to catch up as best as I can on RCFB, the Athletic, wherever I can grab a bit. But I got to ask you, Thack, how are you feeling about Mizzou?
Man, I'm indifferent. It's unfortunately for Drinkwitz. Like, I kind of like the guy. It's not the make or break season, but you got to at least get to 7 wins here. If that's not going to happen, then he's going to have some serious explaining to do to the athletic director. The problem is it's just not a great target school for kids, and it never really was, but it hasn't been in about a decade, and so It's kids just don't want to go to Columbia, and I don't blame them, man. It's when you can go somewhere warm or somewhere where there's some better football going on. So I don't know. I think I spoke a little bit on this yesterday. I think the SEC East is wide open this year, with obviously some big time levers on the normal top dogs. So I think they'll have a decent shot. But honestly, I think I'm really high on the Gamecocks out of that division this year. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a bigger toss-up than people are predicting. I don't think that Georgia's going to walk away super clean with it, and I don't think Tennessee is going to walk away clean with it at all. But yeah, I don't know. It's. I feel all right. I mean, I feel a little bit better knowing, and this pains me to say as a big college football fan, I feel a little bit better with the football team's mediocrity since the basketball team has gotten a new head coach and basically turned that program around in about a year. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see a couple takeaways from the spring game. I mean, Quinn Ewers obviously getting the start over Arch Manning. I mean, nobody saw that coming at all, of course. I think Ewers looked good, to be honest, and I didn't get much of a chance to catch many spring football games. But man, I just want to know: have you seen the ESPN FBI list and how much crack are they smoking over there, or how much crack is the ESPN FBI computer smoking? With Texas again, very high at 5, I believe.
I think Texas has been building a program. I mean, I don't, obviously breaking in a new quarterback, and I know, I mean, Quinn Ewers went up as expected to be the named starter, but I think they've got the talent to deliver some level of success. I don't know if top 5 is exactly where I would put them, but I think we're going to get a very quick benchmark test when they play Alabama early on. I think we were just talking about that with the last speaker. So, I mean, we'll give that, and it looks like, by the way, Dak, just give me a second. We got one other folk who wants to come up here. I'd love to hear from you. Let's see, Evan G. I'm going to let you right up here because I want to get as many people an opportunity to talk as we have a Tuesday night chat. When you get up here, Evan, just go ahead and hit on mute. Would love to hear from you and what your thoughts are. And then I promise I'll get to you. Can't wait till football season. I've just learned that the longer people wait on hold, the less likely I'll be able to actually hear them when they unmute. So, Evan, I would love to hear from you.
Hey, how's it going, guys? I am an Iowa fan, big Big Ten guy through and through. Went to Iowa, born and raised there. Obviously, Iowa is known for defense. Clearly, we struggled to score on offense at all. I was curious to hear thoughts on, our offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz, who is obviously Kirk Ferentz's son, was given, his goals for the season where the Iowa Hawkeyes offense has to score 25 points a game. There were some other requirements in there for him to get certain compensation. So I was wondering, kind of what you guys think of that. Is it just a total joke that, Brian Ferentz is still the offensive coordinator here?
It doesn't. I mean, to be honest with you, it certainly, I would be lying if it hasn't been a source of amusement. At least it's an easy thing to go with. Now, if the offense starts taking off, I'm sure people will eventually stop that. But certainly the fact that it is, of course, the son of the head coach, and the offense has been so anemic, and yet no changes have been made. It's hard not to look at that. I mean, objectively, in addition to the humor of it. But that said, I found that contract really interesting. I mean, it got a lot of traction, I think, on every website, let alone our CFB. Because, I mean, if it works, it works. But, I mean, I'm sure you heard all the jokes about, wow, the offense of the entire season versus, how Iowa did as a basketball team, compare.
Yeah.
It's like more. I forgot the
Caitlin Clark scores more points a game than the Iowa offense.
Yeah. I mean,
heard it all.
So, I mean, those kinds of jokes write themselves. But that said, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, it could be this is the sort of incentive that gets the offense moving. I'm still kind of curious to wonder how long, you know, how long Kirk Ferentz can work with that. And I know every time people would sort of ask him about it, they would talk about, well, because of the relationship between them, the administration has to have sort of a special setup so it doesn't look like it's an pardon me, oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking, but you know what I mean. So they have to create some level of separation between the two of them. But
yeah, I mean, one thing that's going to be different too is we had Petrus for the last 2-3 years, and Cade McNamara transferred from Michigan this year, so he'll be our starter. So I'm excited to see how that could change the offense as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's going to be a key to see how they go. Because, I mean, he did well enough to get third team All Big Ten. So he's not a joker at the quarterback. So it would be interesting to see if they can develop some kind of offense. Because they have the schedule isn't the easiest. I mean, they got to go at Penn State. They got, the rest of it is a bit, at least the tougher games tend to be at home. But that at Penn State's probably the one that's most alarming. Utah State is a decent. I mean, they got a decent opener. Obviously, the Cyhawk Class A, the Cyhawk game, or Elastico, or however you want to call it. That's always, no matter how those two teams are, you always kind of. I love that game because you always have to roll the dice on who's going to win. It's a beautiful, true rivalry in that sense. But I mean, it's going to by the game number 4 at Penn State, we're going to find out real quick how much has happened at Iowa, because those Nittany Lions have finally started to, I think, get the respect that James Franklin had wanted them to have for all those years. I mean, it's ceased to become a hype, but I think the rest of the games, I mean, they've got the ability. But it'll be. Iowa is one of the great questions. Will we see any improvement on offense? It seems to be hard to imagine it getting worse. So,
yeah, I mean, the good thing is we play in the Big Ten West, so. That's compared to the Big Ten East, it's not even close. So you always got to go through Ohio State and Michigan, no matter what. So,
and isn't this the last season for divisions, or are they drop?
I think either this season or last, and then it's
USC and UCLA join the party.
Yeah, so that I don't know how the hell that's going to work. But
I don't think anyone does. They're just hoping all the money will make up for it.
Yeah, I'm sure that will. I'm sure they'll make it work.
Well, Evan, thanks for joining us, man. It was great hearing from you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, let's go ahead and let our friend, the Ole Miss fan, can't wait till football season. We're going to go ahead and let you up. I'd love to hear from you. Again, if you want to join the conversation, hit request. Would love to hear from you. Lots of stuff to talk about. It's the off season. But there's so much other things that are going on in college football. But you're up here. Would love to hear from you. What's going on?
I have a question about Oklahoma. Like, how I was looking at the ESPN rankings. How are they 10?
So I'm sorry. So you're saying how they're able to get ranked number 10? Was that the question? I'm sorry, I totally missed the beginning of that. Yeah, no. I mean, well,
it's a disappointing year.
It was a disappointing year. I think there's a couple of things that go into this, because I mean, Brent Venables, it was his first year as head coach, so it didn't go quite how they planned. But there's all kind of things you can point at. I mean, they lost 2 of their best players on the offense to USC, and obviously the reigning Heisman Trophy winner was with them, and then of course left the program to go join along with Mario Williams and again cornerback. They lost a few people in addition to other transfers. So I think some aspect of that is going in there. It's still Oklahoma. It's still a blue blood. They're still able to bring in some star recruiting talent. They've got, quarterback like Jackson Arnold. They've got people like that coming into the program in addition to many others. So I think that aspect is part of what it's a bit of a brand name thing. And a lot of these blue bloods will always kind of get that sort of bang for their buck. I think when you're looking at how the other teams are looking at and how their schedule is looking, there seems to be some decent scheduling for them. I mean, there's some quirks to it. I think everyone in the state of Oklahoma, as well as those kind of more sicko fans, are looking forward to seeing Oklahoma have to go play at Tulsa. That'll be an interesting one. And then, of course, because this is still the Big 12, they haven't left for that SEC yet. We've got to play at the new folks, Cincinnati. and then they got to play at BYU again. They're playing at the two of the new people that are joining the program, probably joining the conference, as well as they get to host UCF. So the season's going to be interesting in terms of the biggest challengers for them. It'll be interesting to see how that breaks down. I mean, Texas is okay. I'm not going to say Texas is back because I curses Texas whenever anyone says that, but Texas definitely looks like it could be strong. We're going to see how they do. So I think a lot of that goes into just Oklahoma. Now, if Oklahoma underperforms again, and I think we're going to see a little bit more of a downswing the following year. But I think that is just something that kind of comes with being a blue blood, being a program that can manage to do so well. And I think, again, just given the quirks of that the change and losing Lincoln Riley, I mean, they started last season number 9, and then obviously they finished the season unranked. So now I guess they're starting just a slight step below that. I think it's just we're going to see how they do, but I think a lot of people just have faith in that coaching staff that they can maybe turn it around and get them back into contention. But it's a good question. I mean, I think every year we'll always talk about that whenever a team that has underperformed but has that name brand sort of gets ranked high again the next season. As a USC fan, I've seen that year after year, and I'm sure some of my friends over at Notre Dame can say the same thing. Sometimes it's nice to have a name people remember, but sometimes that doesn't always translate on the field. But the good news is these preseason rankings ultimately become meaningless as the season wears on. So we'll see how that goes. Especially when you upset a team that is like preseason ranked really high and then they end up being a complete dumpster fire. So those are always the best ones. When some team absolutely celebrates like they're Ewoks that just defeated the Imperial Empire, and then you find out, no, you really didn't. They were very anemic that season. So we'll see how that goes. Again, if you'd like to join the conversation, you hit request. Otherwise, there's lots of other things to talk about in college football as we kind of finish out this usual half-hour show. We see here we actually had a couple of so one of the other interesting stories that kind of popped up is, again, things that we talked about, the official visits, but let's see here. There's going to be potentially another college football team joining, and I say this only because last couple of weeks we were talking about the death of Simon Fraser, the one Division II team, actually the one NCAA team that is out in Canada. Due to realignment, they actually had to shut down their program because they weren't let into any conference, and it's hard to be independent when you're literally across an international border. Their old conference imploded because a couple of teams dropped football, and then a couple of teams moved into different conferences. The remainder, except for them, were invited to the Lone Star Conference, which, as you can guess, is more centered in Texas. And the idea of having a team in Vancouver in the conference, especially in Division II, where it's all non-revenue, just wasn't going to work. So that program had to shut down. But meanwhile, over in Salem, Virginia, and I'm specifying Salem, Virginia, because Roanoke College, which despite the name is located there, not in Roanoke, Virginia, is planning to bring back football for the first time since 1942. There is a small stadium there. Those folks who follow Division III, at least for quite some time, know that actually they used to host the D3 National Championship, the Stag Bowl, at the Salem Football Stadium for I want to say a little over 20 years. So they have a stadium there that works for D3. So good luck. We hope to see another team, and maybe it'll be Roanoke College. I just thought we'd drop that out. What's their mascot again? Let's see. That would be the Maroons. So, it's a color. Awesome. So it would be like Chicago. So we all love colors, I always joke. That's what, I mean, when we talk about it, because obviously Harvard's the crimson, Chicago's the maroon, and then Stanford, some of you may know the classic story. Stanford used to be the Indians, and back in the 70s, like the mid 70s, they decided, we'll drop that. We'll come up with something. So they asked the student body to come up with a new mascot name. The student body had a vote, and they picked the awesomest name. It was the Robber Barons. Why would they name themselves the Robber Barons? It was a joke about the fact that the Stanford name was from such a kind of one of those industrial barons. So they thought, why don't we name the whole school after that? Well, in the I guess the Regents or whatever they were equivalent, they took that name and they came back with a color, the cardinal, because clearly Stanford just wanted to be more like Harvard or Chicago at that time. So there you go. That's the story of how they became the cardinal. It's one of my favorite stories, and we'll kind of continue on from there. But, a couple of other topics, and maybe you'd want to chime in on these. We had a couple of popular discussions on our CFB this last week, one of which was kind of asking, with Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF joining the Big 12, which teams become the new G5 powers in the near future? And by that, reaching a New Year's Six bowl, obviously, as the playoffs expand, would also mean reaching the playoffs. So, love to hear your thoughts if you want to add to that. I mean, I know the person, Hawkeye 10, who submitted it, said that he sees Tulane building on their huge season and continuing to potentially be a force in the American. But hey, Thack, it seems like you want to join in. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, the obviously we're going to look to powerhouses and some of the bigger Group of Five conferences like the American. Tulane is sort of the obvious answer, but man, I'm really liking Marshall, what they're doing recently, and I think that of hypothetical teams to get a Big 12 bid, I think Tulane's a little bit closer, but I do like what Marshall's doing, and I think they're going to continue to build on a couple of those key wins that they've had over the next decade.
Absolutely. And let's see here. Quinshon is him. Quinshon is him. Sorry, I always forget what to use it because can't wait till football season's always kind of awkward. But what are your thoughts on this topic?
Didn't North, I like Boise, like always.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Boise State, you can't really, I think sometimes they get forgotten a little bit because people sort of, I think they have what it takes. I think a couple of folks in that same post agreed with that. I'm looking at the post by Johnny Madden, an Oregon State fan. He thinks Boise State absolutely has the tools to get back to national power with Tail and Green. And he also brings up Fresno because I think Fresno State, I agree, Fresno State still has that ability to climb up. They had a decent season where they turned it around after kind of a wonky opening half of the season, mostly due to injuries. And they were able to finish it up with an LA Bowl win over Wazoo. So I think Fresno State's another one, especially with Tedford as that head coach. And he can, and even post Hainer, because obviously they had that great quarterback there. And another one that, again, I love this guy's comment because Johnny Madden also brings up James Madison because they literally just had their first FBS season and they managed to win 9 games and caused some real problems in that Sun Belt. So there's a real strong chance to see them kind of climb up because I'm always fascinated by James Madison. Some of you may remember they got into this. They were very slow to join the FBS because they had offers thrown at them over the years and they would turn them down. They I believe before it was either Conference USA or the Sun Belt, but like 10 years ago or a little less than 10 years ago, threw them an offer. And they're like, no, we're not quite ready. We actually had their athletic director on a RCFB talk during the season. We talked to them about that. And they really had a very deliberate, slow, intentionally slow process of building that program into a state where they would be able to do just what they did this past season and jump right into an FBS conference and cause problems and compete. So I think we're going to see them potentially keep growing from there too, because as of the last conference realignment, at least on the G5 level, I really thought the impressive one was the Sun Belt. Because I remember, those of you who've been around college football long enough may remember when the Sun Belt started competing in FBS football around 2001. They were like a basket case conference for like the first 5-6 years. I mean, it was just like, their claim to fame was North Texas won the first conference title and went to the New Orleans Bowl with a losing record. That was back when going to a bowl with a losing record was like, how the hell did that happen? Like now we get it. There's so many bowls and, they when not everyone qualifies, they'll go with academic, benefits, but they managed to lose all of their non-conference games. And that was back when it was an 11-game season, regular season. They managed to lose all of their non-conference games, lose, I believe, 2 of their, or maybe 1 of their conference games, but then win 5 conference games and win the Sun Belt and go to the New Orleans Bowl. So that was what the Sun Belt, that was the first impression they made as a conference when they first came up. But hey, can't wait to football season. I know you wanted to add something.
What about Troy and South Alabama?
Ooh, I like those two. South Alabama's got something growing down there. I mean, they've been putting so much money in that program. I've been down to Mobile. I've seen what they're doing there. That stadium is just absolutely is just gorgeous, and it's in a recruiting hotbed. Same with Troy. Troy is serious about football, and then they can occasionally make those sorts of wins. I know Thak mentioned Marshall too. I forgot to go back to that because Marshall is a strong program. I still remember the years they were having, particularly when they were going undefeated. They had that one. What was that season? Was that 98? Thak, help me here. I think you might know that off the top of your head.
Also,
It was late 90s, I think. If I can.
Was it 97 or 98? God.
Yeah. I mean, another one too we're forgetting, man, is talk about a perennial old powerhouse. The Ponies, man, of SMU. There's
absolutely.
There's a lot of money there. There's a lot of money there, and I mean that's a good logical next step if they could string together a couple of good seasons. Unfortunately, they've been getting kind of pushed towards mediocrity when you have these stronger schools having some good seasons in the American like UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati and the like.
And obviously, losing Sonny Dykes at TCU certainly didn't help either. I mean, that was probably the most amazing part of it. Is like, wow. So if you just gave him slightly better weapons, he might be able to go to a national championship game. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, what is the internal conversation at SMU after that happened? I mean, not people. I don't think we hear about that quite as much. But you know what? It is about 9:30 right now. It's a little past, and we like to keep these nice and tight to about 30 minutes in the off season. I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping us up here. But every Tuesday night we have these conversations, and we love hearing from you. This is
UTSA.
Pardon?
UTSA.
Oh yeah, UTSA, absolutely. I think oh man, yes, that's a great one. That is absolutely a great call because what they're building over there, and they've had just 2 tremendous seasons, and there's no sign that they're going to let up. So absolutely, we're big fans of UTSA and what they've been building over there. On that note, I'm going to go ahead and start wrapping this up here. This was our CFB Talk 135. It's the off season. We've been having these conversations. We look forward to doing these every Tuesday night and hearing from you. I just want to say I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Now, I'm going to hang up and listen.